Greetings. Thank you for attending this update on Amtrak Cascades passenger rail improvements. A major update to this presentation is that as of February 3rd, 2025, thanks to Representative Reed and Senators Valdez and Nobles, we now have a bill for establishing intercity passenger rail improvement priorities, adding a new section to RCW 4779. The bill is House Bill 1837 and Senate Bill 5667, and we need your help to pass this legislation. But first, some background. My name is Lael White, presenting with Tim Gould with the Rail Can't Wait campaign to ask for your help with creating excellent rail service in Washington state. We think of intercity rail as the backbone of public transit when it's functioning effectively, and this will require collaborating with you during this 2025 Washington legislative session. The Amtrak Cascades corridor provides essential transportation serving 14 stops, Vancouver, BC, Portland, and then further to Eugene. It's a popular service and ridership has nearly recovered from pandemic levels, but it is often slow and unreliable. Making it more attractive will facilitate mode shift from highways and short flights. And as we know, more people choosing public transit and especially rail transit means lower emissions. The Washington legislature and WashDOT set ambitious but attainable goals in the past and made detailed plans in 1993, updating them in 2006 and citing them in the State Rail Plan for 2019. If these plans had been fully implemented, we would already have a much more attractive, efficient service, shorter trip times, reliable hourly trips of 2.5 hours Seattle-Portland, and every other hour trips of 2.75 hours Seattle-Vancouver, BC. It's worth mentioning that Washington taxpayers already paid tens of millions of dollars for those plans, but only a few projects have been built. We need to restore previous trip time goals and achieve 88% on-time reliability. That was the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, or ARRA grant, requirement for the 2017 service improvements. Currently, there is federal funding available, and the program has official status in the Federal Corridor ID program. In spring of 2024, WashDOT put out a request for public comments on their 5 proposed alternatives for a service development plan. Alternative E had the most increase in speed and number of trains. On analysis, we found there was not enough infrastructure to support trip times competitive with driving or flying, or high reliability, or the proposed number of trains, and far too long a timeline to completion, another 20 years, when this program was supposed to be completed in 2018. WashDOT received hundreds of comments from our networks, including from regional planners and House Transportation Committee leadership, saying that the department's preliminary service development plan needs to be more ambitious. Following that public input, WashDOT's preliminary SDP report acknowledges that the top priorities identified through public feedback are more frequent trains, shorter travel times, reliable on-time service, reduced greenhouse gas emissions, and better local connections at stations. The exciting part of the preliminary SDP is that service could increase to hourly 16 trains a day between Portland and Seattle with speeds to 90 miles per hour, but that only occurs in a few short segments. Travel time is reduced by a small amount, and on-time reliability of 88%, which was the 2011 ARRA grant requirement mentioned earlier, cannot be achieved without enough infrastructure. On-time performance on the corridor in 2024 was about 50%. In short, WashDOT's infrastructure proposals must be reconsidered to better support their service proposals. Now I'll pass it to Tim to talk about specific improvements that are needed.
Thank you, Lael, for describing the present condition of Amtrak Cascades. Previous plans Lael mentioned contain details for how to restart a better Amtrak Cascades. A major upgrade is to add 200 miles of dedicated passenger track, the blue lines on the route map, to enable 110 mile/hour speeds on the corridor. The southern end of the Point Defiance bypass near DuPont needs critical infrastructure with new track alignment that enables much higher speed and improved reliability. This is where, as the orange arrow indicates, the present track has the longest section of reduced speed and is the worst bottleneck on the corridor. Here's a diagram showing how an added passenger-only track would be part of the rail right-of-way. The photo includes a crossover switch between tracks, which need to be included at necessary intervals for passenger trains to switch to the adjacent shared track for trains to go past each other. The satellite map shows how an alignment change designed for much higher speed can replace the Point Defiance bypass route, shown in yellow, with its series of speed restrictions, including a tight 30-mile-per-hour curve near the railroad overcrossing of I-5. Amtrak Cascades will be delivered the first of the new Siemens Aero train sets on the National Amtrak contract, and these trains will be put in service on the Pacific Northwest Corridor sometime in 2026. The train pictured on the right is the Cascades paint scheme. These new train sets will be very nice, but if the corridor doesn't have infrastructure upgrades, they won't operate up to their capacity, just like the current older train sets. Aero trains are certainly capable of traveling 110 miles per hour, but these infrastructure upgrades, like I just described, are needed. Our Amtrak Cascade service is a mobility and climate solution available now, yet improvements are needed to induce greater mode shift to rail. The federal grant funding now available is unprecedented, but the state needs money to secure it. Some may wonder where high-speed rail fits in the future. As shown on this slide with numbers based on the June 2023 Joint Transportation Committee independent review of the Ultra High-Speed Ground Transportation Program, major upgrades to the Amtrak Cascade service is different in timeline, corridor, and cost compared to the Ultra HSR project. Amtrak Cascades improvements would take about 1/3 the time as building Ultra HSR. These approaches differ in expense. The full set of Amtrak Cascades improved infrastructure costs about $12 billion to $15 billion, while Ultra HSR is estimated at $80 billion to $150 billion in today's dollars. Ultra HSR requires all new right-of-way, while Amtrak Cascades improvements largely use the existing rail right-of-way, so it impacts about 1/10 the land area. Improvements to Amtrak Cascades will benefit freight rail service, thus providing economic efficiencies. Mode shift of both passenger and freight to rail can be achieved in a meaningful time frame by investing in our existing service and infrastructure, delivering mobility benefits, and mitigating climate change effects in the near term. An effective Amtrak Cascade system is needed as a regional feeder service for any future high-speed system that would necessarily serve fewer cities. In summary, many essential benefits are realized by investing in Amtrak Cascades upgrades. From reduced traffic congestion to frequent and shorter travel time trips, such as 2.5 hours travel time between Seattle and Portland. Rail energy efficiency means reduced emissions for health and climate benefit. Ensuring Amtrak Cascades delivers reliable service strengthens local transit and improves connectivity. This is equitable transportation, including for those who don't drive, and intercity rail promotes transit-oriented land use patterns.
Excellent. Thank you, Tim. Please see the one-pager with information presented here and more. We ask you today to send a message to your state legislators asking them to support passage of House Bill 1837 and Senate Bill 5667, policy bills for recommitting to the goals we've described. Pro tip, first be sure your legislator hasn't already co-sponsored these bills. If they have done so, definitely write to thank them. You can comment to your own legislators directly on the bill in the comment area provided. Please stay tuned for opportunities to sign in with a position of pro for hearings and for testimony and other activities. Thank you so much for attending. Please send comments and questions to info@climaterailalliance.org or info@solutionaryrail.org.
Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for opportunities to advocate for better rail transit in the state of Washington.